I recall many Sunday school lessons as a child where we were taught to consider our personal choices in relation to biblical text. What would Jesus do? It's a simple yet age-old question. What would Jesus do in this moment? How would Jesus want me to act in this situation? This was the most basic of ethical questions, but at a young age, this simple mantra laid an ethical foundation for life. You see, Christians believe that God cares about all aspects of our lives, including how we manage our money. And as fund managers guided by Christian principles, our role is to be more than managers, but rather stewards of wealth. And stewardship makes us ask tough questions like that simple mantra. What would Jesus buy? So what would Jesus buy? Well, unfortunately, the biblical texts do not give us some divine stock picks. Instead, the text outlines a set of principles for moral living and call us to be close adherents. And through the biblical text, we are encouraged to look holistically at creation, all the way from people to planet. We are tasked with being in solidarity with the oppressed, calling out injustice, and restoring creation. Now, some of you watching may not come from a faith-based organization or group, and some may consider Christian-led ethical investing a niche product. So why care about what Christianity has to say about investing? Well, fundamentally, we care about what you care about. Christianity remains deeply concerned for the least of these, the marginalized, the poor. And biblical text calls us to radically love our neighbor, to do no harm, and reminds us of the gift that is our beautiful planet and its inhabitants. This is, as our speaker Jorg just said, a relationship of solidarity, of love, marked by doing no harm. So as investors, a relationship of solidarity with people and planet means developing robust ethical perspectives. So out of love for people and planet, Christian-led ethical investment seeks to carry on the legacy of this biblical teaching. And like you, we want to address the climate emergency, seek tax justice, end modern slavery, improve nutrition, and address all sorts of injustices facing this world. The Christian faith is also steeped in a rich history of moral changes and challenges. And Christian-led investment is guided by these centuries of moral thought and debate. That's not to say we don't care about the bottom line. On the contrary, like all fund managers, we aim to serve the financial needs of the client. It is to say, however, that before any investment action, we draw upon the wealth of this collected knowledge and carefully consider the moral and spiritual implications. Our history informs our decision-making and helps us navigate increasingly complex and moral challenges. A Christian investment ethic must also be rigorous. There's a lot at stake for us when speaking about matters of Christian responsibility. If our decisions are indeed ethically dubious, we disappoint not only our clients, but we believe God too. Therefore, every decision we take and every strategy we implement must be thoroughly researched and rooted in our ethic and client tolerance. God, as our stakeholder, encourages the Christian-led fund manager to strive to be moral, ethical, and spiritual custodians of client funds, whilst pursuing the returns that you require. You know, I often get asked if I really believe this stuff. And the answer is a resounding yes. And whether you do or not, I hope that what I've said gives you comfort in the CFB and Epworth's pursuit of honesty and authenticity. Because a Christian ethical approach can be an invaluable resource when pursuing moral returns. And at CFB and Epworth, our unique heritage pushes us to speak on behalf of the poor, the marginalized, and the planet. And being guided by Christian principles means we don't speak out against injustice for moral brownie points, but rather out of a deep sense of integrity that desires real redemptive change. So whether you're an organization rooted in a faith tradition or one pursuing ethical returns that you can be proud of, don't be afraid to ask, what would Jesus buy? Because what you're really asking is, how can my organization pursue returns that do no harm, benefit the planet, protect the poor, as well as serving our financial needs? So how does all of this play out in practice? Well, ethics, rooted in this moral tradition that I've just spoken about, and guided by our Joint Advisory Committee on the Ethics of Investment, are fundamental to all we do at CFB Epworth. And out of a deep love for people and planet, we are driven by our ethical approach to be, through investments, an advocate in the investment world for the climate, public health, the poor, the marginalized, and for general human flourishing. Like you, we care deeply about human needs, and we avoid investments in some businesses that are simply incompatible with living a safe, healthy life. So for this reason, we avoid investments in armaments, nuclear weapons, high interest rate lending, oil and gas, thermal coal, pornography, gambling, and tobacco. We also seek to be active stewards of your resources. And we've been very busy over the last 12 months putting your money to work to improve the lives of people and to better our climate. Notably, we have disinvested from our remaining oil and gas holdings and recently sold BHP because of its inadequate climate commitments, specifically the company's new oil exploration agenda. So we're really excited about the role the CFB and Epworth will play as a thought leader on ethical issues. And as such, we're redoubling our efforts around ethics. And that's what my role is all about. And as part of this effort, we are focused on creating policies that meet the ethical standards of our clients, as well as policies that give us the best opportunity to effect the most change for the good of people and planet. I recently attended COP26 in Glasgow to speak to journalists and companies on behalf of our clients. And as David alluded to in his speech, we enjoyed strong press coverage in the Times, challenging the banks to stop climate target dilution activity. Specifically, we challenged HSBC to be more transparent and just around their approach to climate, and to take the science and the plight of the poor seriously. We also seek to put our money where our mouth is. And in response to our clients, 5 days before the COP26 conference, we were delighted to join 71 other institutions in a joint announcement on fossil fuel disinvestment. And we feel this sent a powerful message to company and political leaders, demonstrating our position that until such time the oil and gas companies take the emergency seriously, take the science seriously, and align with the COP Accords, they cannot form part of an ethical portfolio. And though we've made tremendous strides in our approach to oil and gas, fair tax, as you'll hear later on in the day, healthy eating, and the mining industry, with all the issues facing us, with all the injustice around the world related to investment, with all the unique perspectives that each of you bring, how do we focus and prioritize our efforts as ethical investors? Well, foundational to our ethical strategy is the strengthening of our ethical grounding through the development of what we're calling ethical pillars. And these pillars will underpin our policies, rooted in our theological heritage. They'll keep us grounded in our ethical approach and allow us to better respond to existing and emerging issues. These pillars will also be linked to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. Now, we support the utilization of SDGs, but feel that without a robust ethical underpinning, they risk being simply hijacked by corporations or organizations wishing to appear great and good. But by linking our pillars to the SDGs, we develop a common industry voice, whilst better embedding our unique approach into our action. You'll also see a positive impact narrative from us. That is, we will be on the front foot of ethical activity, actively seeking out opportunity to encouraging companies to improve standards, raising our head above the parapet, supporting those companies who are really trying, and of course, challenging those who fall short. We're also increasing our efforts to gather the ethical perspectives of our stakeholders and clients. This means that all of our client voices will feed into the development of our ethical approach. And to achieve this, we'll be in dialogue with our clients to consider the ethical issues at the forefront of your respective organizations. The results of our conversations will help us focus our priorities, as well as identify emerging issues. We took the first steps of this earlier this year with a smaller sampling of stakeholders, clients, and our joint advisory committee on the ethics of investment. And the results of these first steps helped us form our priorities for the new year, and we look forward to each of your voices feeding in. With the pillars in place then, and the listening exercise on ethical priorities underway, we gain a strong starting point for ethical action, and we'll be better able to focus on what's most important to our stakeholder and client, as well as where we have the greatest impact potential. We will continue to develop this strategy as we gather voices like yours to keep us committed to making your money work harder for your ethical goals. You know, I so look forward to the year ahead as this strategy begins to positively impact the planet and its people. I'm also excited to hear from all of you watching as we gather more voices and insights to help us better prioritize and identify emerging issues. And you know, it's such a pleasure to work with a team of people who are passionate about investment as much as they are passionate about meeting your ethical requirements. I'm sure you'll see this passion in the presentations ahead. But for now, I'll be delighted to take your questions, and I'll do my best to answer them here. If I can't, I'll submit them to you in writing after this conference. And if we don't get to your question, or something comes to your mind after the conference, please do reach out. Myself and all of the team would be happy to chat. So if you have any questions, now is the time to ask in the messaging feature on your screen. So the first question coming through, what is the current situation with the Mining and Faiths Initiative? Do we accept the principle in this context that it is vital to engage with communities affected by mining and our policies in this area under review in the aftermath of COP26? Look, we know that mining touches lives all around the world, many of whom are poor and marginalized. And we're delighted to work with a collaborative group of people, such as the Mining Faiths Reflections Initiative. And only weeks ago, we joined Cardinal Turkson from the Vatican in a conversation with the major mining companies to discuss how the Church might better inform societal care policy. However, we appreciate that more can be done. So we're working hard on an extractives policy that will enable us to better engage with the mining companies and help in protecting indigenous communities and workers' rights as the world consumes more heavy metals in the pursuit of overall carbon reduction. This policy will reinforce our efforts with the Mining Faith Reflections Initiative, allowing us to ask the tough questions, as well as helping us work with other groups, such as Climate Action 100+. And once adopted, I'm confident our new extractives policy will help us more ably speak on behalf of the poor and the voiceless, including those affected communities. Another question coming in. The CFB in Epworth disinvested from oil and gas sector on the grounds that no company was aligned with the Paris Accord. I see that the Transition Pathway Initiative have adjudged that several oil companies, including Total, previously owned by the CFB, are now aligned. Does this mean the CFB is reinvesting in these companies? A great question. Look, we would love nothing more than the oil and gas majors to align with Paris. It would signal a strong commitment to addressing the climate emergency, the science, and the poor. And we're always monitoring the latest reports from our research partners and diligently examining the Transition Pathway Initiative's recent analysis of the oil and gas companies. But because we see the oil majors as being so crucial to seriously addressing the climate emergency, we approach all reports that paint oil companies in a more positive light with a healthy degree of caution. So we'll continue to monitor the situation, but would expect a great deal more research and corroborating evidence before we reconsider investment. At the heart of it, we want to invest with integrity, honoring our policies and our clients. And I think what's important to note is that our robust approach demands that we utilize a combination of research sources, of which TPI is just one, alongside our extensive in-house analysis. And until we're absolutely satisfied and certain, we won't bring this forward to you. Well, if there's no more questions, thank you very much. And I'll now pass back to our chair, Nick.